books. I always, like in movies when
I
the
think
kids are born.
like
when the kids are born and they're like,
children and like
how to raise a
upbringing
child.
and like how to raise
Yeah.
Did you read all of that?
I'm going to take a gap year just to read.
Loads of books.
Don't you think you should take a year out to
Take a
study
year
how
out
to
to
raise a
read.
child? Like,
That's why she took her gap year.
You should listen. You should take a year out to study how to raise children.
yeah,
A year out to study how to make a marriage work.
exactly.
And a
I
year
want
out
everything
to study
go.
how
You're
to
50 when you have
how
all
to
of
find a
them.
marriage partner.
I'm doing that now.
Stop it,
And
Sarah.
then by the time you're 30, you might get some of that reading done.
That's true. I feel like, I said this to you the other day, Abhijit, that I feel like from when we were young, you could learn from this. Just saying. Just joking, you do it well, thank you. No, you've treated us from when we were like 16, like we're adults. And Mama does too in her own way. She just talks to you like you're 5.
That's
She talks to your 10-year-old daughter like she's, your 20-year-old daughter like she's your 10-year-old daughter. No, but you both do treat us like adults from when we were probably like 16, 17 years old, or maybe even younger, even, because the way that Sarah moves, she makes all decisions by herself, and she's 10. No, you have given us that level of trust and freedom to be able to make our own choices, and that respect as well from parents to their children.
I feel like there's also a line between respect and fear. So you can either be acting out of respect for your parents, as in the freedom that you've given us, we would then never want to use that to like betray you.
Exactly, yeah.
But some people would be acting out of fear. It's not a respect thing because they've never been given
they're
that
scared of
freedom.
their
They're
parents.
scared. Yeah.
And I feel like,
And some people would
that
say that
saved
fear
us
is
from
natural and it's important.
I don't know, but I think it's if in our
Obviously, like-
situations in life, I feel like our choices that we've made have sometimes maybe been wiser than if we were in fear of you. Because if we were in fear, like I feel like you can disguise that in other ways, but that guilt that if you get annoyed and you're
just
disappointed, so
I'm
there's
not
like
angry,
anger and there's like, then there's disappointment right at the top, and that is the worst.
Angry.
Yeah,
that's
you're disappointed.
Scary.
It's the worst thing.
I just get disappointed. Sort of moved from happy
But
to
sometimes you
silence.
didn't
disappointed.
say anything. You just
Silence.
that's
so
the worst. That's
scary.
like top tier.
Why am I
Actually,
needing to make that to be the important?
No,
You're actually the calm parent.
I think also if you treat children like children, and there is a time to treat children like children when they are children, right? But when somebody's 16, 17, 18, they're not children anymore. If you treat young people like children, that's how they'll behave. If day in, day out, if you treat young people in a derogatory way, in a way that doesn't have trust, they won't learn to reciprocate that trust because they haven't got it.
I feel like we made
We
you
don't
out
like
to seem
her.
like such a strict
You
parent.
are.
No, you're not. You're not.
She's not
She's
strict
not
at all. Most people can't imagine her
Which is
ever
why they
shouting
talk
at
to me
us.
like this, actually. There's no respect these days.
I feel like sometimes parents misunderstand children, and I feel like
all the time.
yes, all the time. But if you shout, you often miss. Obviously, some things you need to shout at, but sometimes if there's a problem, and you just shout, you miss the actual root of the problem.
True. There's so much in the conversation.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a conversation, you can actually reach an understanding and also feel like you can talk about something. Whereas, like, if you're holding things back and you feel like there's not a space to talk openly, then it's a lot more.
And then you have to find that space somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I think a lot of people are searching for things externally because they haven't got that safe space of discussion and stuff at home.
Sad, isn't it?
It's really sad. Me and Hardy were saying earlier, you instilled values in us without saying this is what it is. We were in conversation with someone else at uni, and we was I think it was, I don't know if it was Islam related, and they were saying like, when did your parents like teach you this and that and stuff? And maybe you did teach us. Maybe there was a time you sat us down and like said this is how you do this and this is how you do that. It was to do with values though. And we were both thinking, I don't think we ever had a conversation like that or like a discussion or a lesson like that. I just think through your behaviour and through different things that you would say and how you would act with us and stuff. I think that's how we learn a lot of things, and I think that's really important. That parents, the way that they act, should be in such a way that their kids will learn from their behaviour, not just from the things that they're shouting at them or the things that they're saying to them as specific lessons.
It's a lot of pressure
That's
on
what-
parents, though, isn't it?
But that's what
It is,
educators
it is,
actually
but
say, don't they? That actually your child will learn much more from what you do
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
rather than what you
teach.
say or
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you're trying to.
And also
That's really
because
interesting.
I feel like if you give the space to make those decisions, so even if we don't necessarily know best as we got older, like even now we might not know best in a situation,
But then we
and
come
you
back
do.
to you.
Yeah, exactly. But then when we make those decisions later, we realise actually I should have listened to you. Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah,
later
you.
you think,
Yeah.
you
make us feel guilty.
No, like you're really good. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's
you're
like a
really
sly
good at
way.
it.
Because it's like you like we'll say to you, Mom, should I do this or this?
Yeah. But if you
And
don't
you say
follow
do
Mama's
this,
decision,
it always
everything
ends
goes
badly.
wrong.
Always
It
ends
goes
badly.
wrong.
If you blame me, it doesn't
She never said,
fine.
I told
You
you
don't
so.
know. You don't have mother's
Yeah.
instinct. That's why.
No, you never say I told you so. It's just like she told me so.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. We can just feel it, and we can just hear Mama cackling in the background.
Cackle.
No, but do you know, like, if you have, so if you go to school and you're like, oh no, wear that coat, it's gonna rain. I'm like, I've checked the weather.
We all told you
I am cutting that out. That's so
Can you insert a
funny.
picture?
That's really.
No, but wait, if it's like I've checked the weather and it's not gonna rain, and I'm saying to you, Mama, it's not gonna rain, I'm fine, I don't need a coat, and it will definitely rain.
So you're
It
saying
will
I
definitely
jinx
rain.
it.
You jinx everything.
Yeah, it's really funny
No, I think
because that's
mothers
how I
do
used
that.
to feel about when we used to when I did stuff that
yeah.
that my mum was sort of saying, take an umbrella. No, I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
It's like a mum's hotline to God or something. It's like, come on.
When you've only had one child and then even two children, you're actually really conscientious that you do want to do things like people have told you it should be done or what you think is the ideal and what have you. So, you were taken to your karate clubs and your swimming and your, everything possible, your violin and your guitar and what have you. And by the time, as I say, you get to the sort of third and fourth child.
What are your talents?
What are your talents?
She's got loads of
I
talent.
do.
Really.
Yeah,
She's a very
she's
talented
recording
young
this.
lady.
She's a talented one.
Yeah. And I think we did try and put those, we have the balance between having boundaries and being quite strict because
Yeah.
you're an adult and you know better, and actually being conscious of the fact that actually I don't want to be so controlling that we don't allow you to be who you're meant to be. But I think, this whole question about nature and nurture
Yeah.
sort of came out that suddenly you see these little people having their own really strong personalities.
Do you know what?
And so you've got this idea in your mind that, okay, me as a parent, I'm going to do this and this is what's going to happen. But like when you were like 2 years old and I had to take you to the doctors.
I think you listen to us too
And-
much. I
And
changed my
listen,
mind.
she
I would never.
refused
I would
to
actually
put on,
never.
it was the middle of winter
Yeah.
and I was telling her to put on these shoes and she refused to put them on because she wanted to wear sandals. And it was sandals with socks, bright pink and orange sandals.
You're
Fashions,
so
right?
Top you.
And I tried my hardest to try and convince this 2.5-year-old, I think it was.
Why would you listen to a 2.5-year-old?
No, but I was trying to convince you. I was trying to put boundaries in place. She wouldn't listen, and there's no way that she was going to get out of that house and we were going to make it in time for that
Because I'm a
appointment. She was
strong,
ridiculous.
independent woman.
No, 'cause
I have
you're
been
your
since I
father's
was
2
daughter.
years old. Mate.
And you've got,
Exactly.
you're very determined. It's not stubborn. It's very determination.
Yeah, but would you listen to a child that young? Like, do
Well,
you
what
think
else
if-
can I do? Of
Do you
course
think
I had to
that's-
listen to you?
I don't think I would listen to a 2-year-old.
Well, what would you do?
What would you do?
Force the shoes on them. Are you mad?
I'm honestly scared for my children. I'm actually really scared.
Why would you listen to a
She'll
2-year-old?
drag them without shoes.
You can't get walk barefoot then.
So
Don't even come in the bush and walk yourself.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. The beauty of social media is that they'll be able to watch this one day. You've got to think, what sort of values do you want your children to have? What sort of people do you want them to be? Once they've grown up, once they've reached maturity, once they've reached adulthood, what is the type of person you want to be? And the thing I was saying to you earlier was that I think one big problem we have in the Muslim community, and I think this is outside in wider society as well, is that people feel that they own their children. I think some parents feel that they are in control, their children need to do what they say, and by children they mean that relationship between parent and child, however old that person is. And at some level, I think that is true. At some level, that there is a relationship there.
There's a level of respect.
There's a respect and a power relationship that will always be there because of that relationship. But it doesn't apply to everyday mundane things.
You know, when you're given something to be looked after as a trust, you have to take care of it, but know that it's going to go back to the one that's given it to you. And I think that has a different sort of way of you then relating to that thing. You know, you don't own it in the same way as something that, you know. And,
It's not a possession.
but I do think, I do think that it's really hard for us as parents as well, you know, because this doesn't come from, you know, this idea of control or not trusting. It doesn't come from a place of wanting ill for your child. It comes because you love them.
It always does, doesn't it? It always does.
From, you know, the evils and the wickedness of the world and what have you. I think, you know, if I'm sort of really sort of thinking hard about why I've sort of chosen to perhaps given you the sort of freedoms that you probably have, that other families may not have, is because I saw that in how my parents brought us up. And, you know, particularly my mother, my father was obviously, you know, quite strict, you know that. But Mummy always, you know, made concessions for us, went out of her way to make sure that we didn't miss out on, you know, gatherings in school or going out with friends or, you know, so one went against the sort of, the sort of status quo with respect to what was okay and what wasn't. And so, but she would always say to us, look, I'm letting you do this, but please don't let me down. And so it forced us to develop that sense of trust that my mum's making these sacrifices and I don't want to do anything that will belittle that or make her feel that I haven't respected that. So trust works both ways, doesn't it?
But I was going to ask that, I don't know if it's in the Quran, you should always listen to your parents, but if your parents are asking you to do something that's wrong, you don't have
That's
to.
in the Quran,
What is that then?
Yeah, so the Quran says if they want to make you commit shirk, then obviously you shouldn't obey your parents.
But that's all it says.
Right, but so what that's giving you is a principle that generally you should have a lot of respect for your parents, but if your parents are trying to make you do something wrong, then you don't listen to them. It's a very clear principle in Islam that ultimate obedience is only to God. And obedience to your parents is subject to your obedience to God. So if for example, let's say we were murderers and we were trying to encourage you to murder other people. You shouldn't say, oh, I've got to do that because my parents have told me to do that. Right? So you can't use that as an excuse to go and commit acts of sin, acts of or criminality. So everything is subject to you being obedient to God above and beyond everything else. And if your parents are being disobedient to God, you have to be disobedient to them. Not out of spite, but because you can't obey them in disobeying God. Right? But the Quran is saying that even if your parents are not the way they should be, talk to them
Always
with dignity, talk to them with kindness. And that's where the thing about comes in. Don't even use that sort of language with your parents. And there are many, many examples of, you know, either prophets or different figures in the Quran where positive and negative models of how parents and children are relating to each other.
I was wondering as well how much you think the way that people are raised has an effect on how they are as an adult. If you aren't physically close to, like a boy isn't physically close to their dad, if they've never received that sort of affection and all of that, it must be really difficult to then know how to give that affection to people in a sensible and normal way as an adult towards females, towards motherly figures and
because I feel when you come into this life, the only role models you really have are your parents. So everything you learn is from your parents essentially. Obviously you have TV programs and you pick up things from.
Yeah.
But the main people you're with is your family, your siblings, the way you pick things up from. That's why older siblings tend to, like younger siblings copy older siblings things. It's your influence. When you're growing up, you pick up a lot of things from your parents that you don't necessarily even realise.
I think I didn't actually realise how significant this idea of mimicking your parents was until I met people that didn't have the same experience that I had.
Yeah.
And actually when we had kids ourselves, you know.
You always think when you had children that they were all going to be different, or did you think I'll parent them all the same? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to adjust
So I
your
think
parenting
I was
to...
aware of it because my parents would say that, look, we've raised you all up and, you know, we brought you all up in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
It was so different.
Mm.
And so I think I was conscious of that. But I think it became really apparent, obviously, when, you know, as you raise, and just the sort of stark recognition that these are little people in their own right. You're not going to be able to shape them or make them something that they're not meant to be.
The influence your parents have on you is one influence in your life. Right? Now, I think it would be reckless of us to be beholden to that just one influence. Because it's pot luck, isn't it? If you were lucky enough to have good parents, then you learn good lessons. But what if you haven't got good parents? What if you're in a position where your parents weren't able to give you those, you know, really nice examples to follow? And that's a lot of people. Let's be honest. You've still got to navigate your way through life.
Yeah.
And even what we've given you, it's not going to be 100% perfect. We're not claiming that. The things that we've given you that are good, take it, and the things that we've given you that are not good, it's your responsibility to leave that behind and find a better path. You've got to find a way that improves on what we've done.
Yeah.
So hopefully, from one generation to another, we can improve and not dilute that positivity.
Yeah.
Because if you only take, all you can do is dilute, right, from one generation to another.
Yeah.
But you've got to take what we've given you, add to it, add more positivity to it, pass that on to your children. Hopefully they'll take from that, add more to it. Okay. Ultimately, what we were trying to say in that other video about destiny is we're all responsible for our destinies. We're all responsible for our own lives. So if I've had, you know, a bad encounter in parenting in my own personal life, I've got to be the one that makes sure I don't pass that on to the next generation. I'm not sure I've done that, well, but it's my responsibility to make sure that I filter that and pass on something better to you.
Yeah.
And likewise, in the mistakes that I make and we make to you, your responsibility is to look at that, see that, scrutinise it, be critical of it, and do something better for your children or the people under your care.
I think I just decided quite early on, and I don't want to be sort of soppy about it or anything, but I just decided that I wanted love to govern how I wanted to bring up my children.
Yeah.
But I wanted to use the experiences, both positive and negative, that I had whilst growing up, to be able to turn that into something constructive. Not have this sort of hang up about it, not sort of focus on all of the things. Because I know that when you guys grow up, you're going to be like, oh, these are all the problems. I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to recognise that, okay, I don't want to do that for my children. But at the same time, I don't want you to have this sense of pain or grievance towards us because of it and then feel really, aggrieved. But recognise that actually, okay, that didn't work for me, I want to try and improve that. And I think that's what we did. I think we sort of felt, actually, these things weren't great for us. And through that love and desire to make sure that I give this beautiful child the best that we can possibly give, you look at those experiences and think, okay, I want to give, that worked for me, and I want them to have that, but that didn't work so well, and I don't.
Our job is to look after children, not to own them or control them. And once a person is responsible to God for everything they do, that's their primary responsibility. I'm still there for guidance, for advice. I hope there'll always be respect and love and compassion there. But it's the relationship of a mentor rather than the relationship of a king and a subject. It's not that type of relationship. And also we know from the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ advised us as to how over different ages of a child's life, your relationship changes with that child. So that ultimately you want to treat your children as friends, as your equals.
I didn't know that.
It's about taking a gift, looking after it,
Mm-hmm.
and until it reaches full maturity, and then allowing it to blossom. We have to believe as Muslims that God is there in
Yeah,
our
God
lives,
prayers.
and we pray and God answers our prayers, and He's guiding us and helping us and supporting us. Without that guidance, I don't think we would have what we have. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not.
Yeah.
I'm sure it could be much better. I'm sure we could do better. And that's up to you guys now to take what you've got and take that to the next generation and make it better for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Inshallah.
The pressure. Pressure. Oh my god! Stop it!
You've got to balance it out.